Hello, everyone. As we start to prepare you to be able to start using your DAW, your digital audio workstation in your classroom, um, obviously with the current restrictions on what we can do in person, that will be dependent on when we get the clearance to go in our classroom. And obviously to do a lot of the work that you're going to be doing, you're going to need to do that. So we are starting online to get you at least introduced to the equipment, the program you'll be using, which is still the industry standard recording program. That's Avid Pro Tools we'll be using in the class, along with other things, some things of your choice. I will emphasize there's no experience needed for the class. So if you are kind of unfamiliar with some of the terms that may be used as we're getting started, please don't panic. We will go over those concepts at some point, mostly early in the class to get you oriented on what you'll have to do. So don't at all be discouraged if you don't understand some of the terminology. And if you don't, by all means, you'll have a chance to communicate with myself and your classmates in Canvas, as I'll be keeping a discussion board open so that you can contact your students, your fellow students, and myself if you have any questions. We're going to begin by talking about program basics. And what I'll be doing is I'll be sharing my screen here to get you started on some of that. My actual class objectives, you'll see that I began with some basic screen shots of Pro Tools, how to get started, opening a session, and creating a session, naming your session, creating a session, naming the session, naming your tracks. Right now, I just want to screen share and show you some of the things I was talking about. Is open up a Pro Tools session, starting by finding the Pro Tools icon. In your systems on campus, you'll be using PCs and not Macintosh computers. So as far as arts and as far as commands and what have you, it may be just a little more difficult to find, but you find your Pro Tools icon, click on Pro Tools. What we'll be doing to start out will be creating a new session. Create new session. And here, given those screens that I showed you, those quick references that I showed you in our introductory, or in our class objectives, I'm sorry. This was the first screen to pop up. This is the first screen that pops up. You'll name the session. Now, I would suggest that you name your session based on what you believe your project session name will be. And of course, that can change. But to give you a direction and to give you a starting point, name the session. Again, it would help if you already have a solid idea of what you're going to do, but you don't have to commit to that now. Let's just give it the name today's session, and maybe give it a date. It's always a good idea to date your session information. Oh, that's 07, 06, 2020. And once we hit this, now before I go any farther, I talked a little in the opening or in the objectives about bit depth and sample rate. Particularly, now there are engineers that will say that seeing as how all of your 2-track work comes down to 16-bit 44.1, 16-bit here, 44.1 here, that it's a good idea to start at that rate, which I actually disagree with that, because there are situations that I have experienced that required that I have a little more ability to record high-end frequency instruments. And if my sample rate was set 44.1, which it was at the time, I experienced some difficulty with really high-pitched instruments. Just generally speaking, these settings give you more headroom. This one in terms of amplitude or loudness, this one in terms of frequency. Right now, let's just create. I'm using my old standby format, 2448, and I will create. That's something else that I had up, but sorry about that. And I'll create that session. It pops up empty. Here is where you create your tracks. We go up, first of all, and we hit track, new tracks. Now, I have asked you in your objectives to create 2 instrument tracks. We'll do that first. Stereo, instrument tracks. If you noticed, the format switched to ticks instead of samples, and I briefly, I think, explained that in your opening. Ticks is more related to MIDI tracks or MIDI recording. It simply put gives you the ability to quantize. It also gives you the ability to change instruments given the same recorded performance. That's MIDI related talk there, MIDI, M-I-D-I. Some of you will be using MIDI largely in your projects. We're going to go 2 MIDI or instrument tracks. When you think of instrument tracks, you can kind of think of them as MIDI tracks at the same time. Create 2 of those. We see them pop up. There's 2 basic windows of operation of Pro Tools, and the quick command to switch back and forth between those is command equals. Command equal. It's a quick command to switch back and forth. And we see our 2 MIDI tracks here in the mix window. This is the edit window. Again, mix window, edit window. A lot of my routing I like to do from the mix window because it reminds me of a console and I can see it more, visualize it. A lot of my routing, and we'll learn what that term means, comes from the mix window. Now that we have our instrument tracks, these are the tracks that we're going to use to create our MIDI tracks. We got 2 tracks created for MIDI. You can have more, but you won't be able to have less. I want you to use at least 2. Now, the next thing we're going to do is create 4 audio tracks. Mono audio track, and it remains in sample format. This means that it is a real-time based format, for lack of a better way of putting it. In other words, it doesn't adhere to a time grid. So in other words, it would be just like you recording me playing a guitar in a room. No click track, just me playing or you playing or singing in a room. No click track again. And we're recording your voice through a microphone. This is sample-based format of recording. We're creating 4 of those tracks. We hit create. Name these. Now, being that these are going to be my instrument tracks, I know for a fact that if I were doing this project in this class, I would choose drums for one of my instrument tracks. So now what that means for me is I use a drum program. And that drum program, I'll just pop it up right now. It's called EZ Drummer 2. I'll just let you see it. So that will be for my project in a class like this. It would be that would be the basis of my recording. My recordings, a lot of my recordings, most of my recordings, practically all of my recordings start with drums. So I would use one of my MIDI tracks for MIDI drum production. The other instrument, as I would probably use, would be some form of keys. Piano, I'll just put a specific one just so you get a sense of it. Piano. I'm pretty sure I would use some form of MIDI keys in this particular type of project. So those are my two instrument tracks. Now here, again, all of these can change as we go along. You don't have to stick to it. Anything you, so, you know, you might be doing your track during the semester and you had a scheduled singer to come in and suddenly the singer can't show up. So maybe you're going to have to use another instrument or whatever. You may have to change your mind. But just starting, we know that there's going to be some form of vocal. Probably not. If this were me, I would know that there would be some form of vocal. Also for me, and I'll put that on this side, you can move these, just click and drag them to wherever you want them. Vocal's kind of my last thing. I know for a fact that for a project like this in my class, I would use for my audio track, again, sample-based track, where I'm recording an instrument live. I am going to have a actual electric bass that I will play myself. I also will likely have an electric guitar that I will play myself. And there are likely to be more than one vocal. Just for now, I'll just put vocal 2 again. Then I can move that down. So I'm just starting with the idea of what my project might consist of when I'm labeling my tracks here. Again, that can change.